This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
All right, we're back. As always, baseball unstitched. We got a good show for you guys today. Excited about it. The swing off was craziness last week. We're going to talk a little bit about our thoughts there. Some bold predictions for the second half. We'll see how bold you guys think they are, I guess. You know, little debates from Flax and I about how bold they are or are not. And finally, Kyle Schwarber. I'm not sure if you recognize this, but he's slowly building a Hall of Fame case. And some of you are going to look at me like I'm crazy, but wait till we dive into this because he has one of the most interesting cases probably ever to exist. But we start where we always start, and it's a little bit of an odd time for us here because the weekend's not over. But Flax, how has your weekend been so far?
Weekend has been good so far. For those who are fans of golf, it was the Open Championship week, so that was enjoyable. Scotty Scheffler now only the U.S. Open away from a career Grand Slam, so that'll be fun conversation for golf fans for the next, 11 months. But otherwise, weekend's been good so far. We got a men's league game tonight. See how that goes. Hopefully a win. And across the board, I'm excited for the conversation today. It seems like anytime we have hot takes or bold predictions, they don't seem to be conversation-inducing, which tells me that our takes are just not hot enough. Unless it's about, ABS, in which case Riverside clips me to look like an idiot. But, other than that, I'm excited to see if people actually think these are as bold of predictions as we think they are.
100%. It'll be fun. We'll see what you guys think. As always, opening thoughts here. Flax, tell us a little bit more about what you got going opening the show today.
Yeah, opening the show, I'm leaning towards a guy who I don't think necessarily got enough hype until probably the last month and a half, and that's J.J. Weatherholt. I have since middle of his junior college season truly thought that he was the most talented guy in the class coming out of college. I just think across the board with what he can do on both sides of the ball, his propensity for power, which he's continued to show across all levels of the minor leagues, he is a higher level talent than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I know I'm back and forth with the table setters guys. They had Connor Griffin as kind of that higher level talent. I still think I sit on J.J. Weatherholt, to be honest with you. He's already got 5 extra base hits in AAA. He's been there for like a week. I think he's hitting 500 in AAA, or was hitting 500 in AAA coming into the day yesterday. It is truly astonishing to see the bat-to-ball skills that are inclusive of the power that he's put together. So yeah, J.J. Weatherholt's my guy. It's my opening thought. Keep an eye on him. I'll be curious to see if he makes his way to the big leagues this year. My guess is a September call-up. They want to see him continue to get at bats at higher and higher levels, more than likely. The only thing that could change that is depending on how injuries shape up with their push for a playoff spot and a wild card spot, which we're going to talk a little bit more about.
I think he could end up forcing his way up sooner than later when you go 8 for 16 to start your career at the AAA level and you were already raking everywhere else, since this is a guy who has maybe the best feel to hit in all of the minor leagues at the current moment. There are a few people who hammer doubles the other way from the left side the way that he does. He stays on the baseball as good or better than anybody who's currently playing at the top level. Very excited to see what this guy does. I'm going to be on an easy one here, and that's Junior Caminero forgot that the home run derby ended immediately.
It's so stupid. His power is so insane.
It's unreal. He hits 2 home runs to start the second half, moving his total already to 25. It's just a good reminder here that by the time this episode airs for you guys, he will have turned 22 only 18 days ago. We're seeing an absolute superstar bat emerge for the Tampa Bay Rays. The power he has to all fields is just unbelievable. Very excited to see what he does for the rest of his career. Another one I love to remind people, not really sure how it happened, but he started out with the Cleveland Guardians system, and it's as if they gave him away for a wooden nickel, which is the craziest statement of all time when you look at what this kid's doing.
he does this weird thing where if he hits the ball the other way, it's like only a home run. Like all of his doubles are pull side. He swings the bat harder than anybody in baseball. He averaged 78 miles an hour on his bat speed. I think like we're capped somewhere around like 83 to 85 miles an hour right now is like as fast as guys are swinging. I could have that number wrong as always, but like when he catches a ball backside, it's gone. Like he's very rarely hitting them for doubles in the gap. He just puts them over the fence. It is insane how much pop he has and how fast he swings. I had him to win the Derby. And people thought I was crazy for having him to win the Derby, including sportsbooks that had him at plus 1,000. It was zero shock to me that he was going to make it, that he was at least going to make it to the finals. He's got the Dominican blood in him, and they do so well in the home run derby. They're made for it. Second of all, bat speed is huge when you're hitting BP. He doesn't have to try as hard to get the ball out because his bat speed naturally will do a ton of that work in generating a lot of the force that a lot of times in games the pitcher's pitch speed does for a hitter. So, all that aside, he's a fun guy to watch, and he's so young, and I'm so excited for what his upside trajectory is.
100%. Tampa Bay, go get your boy. Moving right along here.
Hey, the man.
The swing off, Flax. The swing off. Ended the All-Star game. We finally got one. We gotten close a couple different times, and it finally happened. And, of course, Kyle Schwarber is the one who's going to go up there and make sure one side wins.
Well, it's so funny because Jeff Passan had put out a tweet and said, you've got Cal Raleigh and you've got Aaron Judge and you've got all these guys that could be in it for your team. And the managers just picked different guys. And I love who the managers picked because it totally changed the outlook of the situation. Like starting it off with Brent Rooker and him going 2 for 3 was like, oh, this is going to be a thing. Like right out of the gate, you knew the swing off was going to be fun to watch because it wasn't like impromptu. These guys were just like, okay, I guess I'll just hit BP and try and put a couple balls out. And Rooker coming off the home run derby where he was robbed, by the way. We don't need to talk about it, but he was robbed. Getting his chance to be like, no, I am good at this. I hope he does the home run derby again. But him being in the swing off, and then I was on a space with a couple of guys on Twitter, and I literally said before Schwarber got in there, the most predictable thing in the swing off is that Schwarber will go 3 for 3 with 3 just absolute nukes. And what did Schwarber do? He did exactly that. It was awesome. It was the kind of manufactured moment that Rob Manfred is going to try and find a way to have as much as he can possibly have because of how good it was.
So Schwarber dropping to his back knee on the last one was probably the icing on the cake for me. Absolutely just it reminded me of every time Adrian Beltre would drop to a back knee and you knew the ball was gone. It was just hilarious how many times he did it growing up watching him. But I wanted to give people some easy understanding of the rules of this swing off, as ridiculous as that sounds, because this is the first time it's happened, and the amount of questions that I saw across the Twitter sphere and social media about how did we get to these players, how did we get to the selection, so on and so forth. It's a really, really simple thing, and I'm going to read it. It's a full paragraph. That's it. So the rules are this. The managers of the American League and the National League squads will each select 3 players and 1 alternate in the event of an injury on his roster who have agreed to participate, as well as 3 coaches to throw batting practice. Each player gets 3 swings, and the team with the highest combined home run total after those 3 rounds is declared the winner of the game. Why did I do that? It's actually just that simple. That's what I want to make sure everybody understands with all the questions there were. Like, the managers decided these were the guys who were going to do it. They agreed to do it, and the swing off came around, and they walked up there and did it. There was no, like, we selected X because of what. I mean, they said these are the guys who want to do it. They agreed, and we're going to have a swing off. I mean, it's awesome. I kind of love how simple it is.
This is what made it as good as it was.
100%.
Was that, like, there was no forethought. And we can talk about, right, like whether or not this is a worthwhile thing to do in the regular season. And there are valid points when you compare baseball to other major sports and how they have chosen to go down the path of, do you cut it off at 12 innings in a Major League Baseball game of extra innings and then go to a swing off, right? Like there's ways you can do this where it actually could make sense and is for the betterment of the league and the health of guys longer term. And just maybe the viewing experience when the game can get a little long in the tooth. The situation here where on the AL side, you choose Brent Rooker, Randy Arozarena, and Jonathan Aranda is amazing. Because I can't imagine that Aaron Judge would have sat there and said, no. I think you just end up in a situation where Booney was like, let me just pick a couple different guys. Right? Like Schwarber winning the MVP. How about a guy who goes 0 for in the game and still wins the MVP? Awesome. Right? Like that's the type of thing that this creates. Pete Alonso didn't even have to swing, and Pete Alonso didn't care. Like, guys were out of their dugouts, they were going nuts. Like, you saw the rawest form of the excitement and the gamesmanship that baseball can bring. And it was like such innocence from these major league players of just like being in the backyard in a game against their friends, finding a way to just like finish before they had to go in for dinner at the end of the night. And they just like picked a couple of guys and said, just go hit the ball as far as you can. Good luck. Like whoever does it more wins and then we'll be done. There's no bigger rules. There's no like, oh, you get to see this many pitches. It's like you each get 3 swings. You can take 75 pitches before you take your swings. You can take no pitches before you take your swings. Like that to me, the fact they didn't overcomplicate it, that's the struggle of why I don't think you can do it in regular season. You will overcomplicate it to the point where it's not fun.
So let's move into that conversation because that's been the big conversation since this. I think let's knock this part out real quick. Every exhibition game moving forward should probably have this as the overtime option. Exhibition game, 100%. I think there's no question that in this type of scenario, this is absolutely the right thing to do. Throw this down to, for example, the Futures game. How fun would it be to see in the Futures game the swing off rather than an extra innings game? You get to see these young kids come up there who you don't know their names, and they start blasting balls 450 feet, and all of a sudden you know their name, right? So we can agree that in most Major League Baseball exhibition situations, this is a great, great option. What does this need to look like to you to put into a regular season game, or should it just maybe not be considered at the moment? I don't know. I want your thoughts, and I'll give you mine.
I think that when I look at, again, like I said, when you look at it up against soccer, penalty kicks, hockey, you've got penalty shots, penalty shootout, right? Like there are other sports that use this after an overtime session to basically like nip it in the bud, finish the game, move on. I think that that's kind of the direction it would have to go. You can't replace extra innings. You have to supplement extra innings. Now, we've already done a good job of supplementing extra innings by having the Ghost Runner. To be honest with you, I don't really love the Ghost Runner. I think it is uninteresting. There's some level of strategy to it, but there's also a level at which like we've manufactured a situation that we almost get more frustrated at big leaguers for screwing up. I would rather play a 10th, 11th, and 12th inning straight up, and if the game isn't over after those 3 innings, then we do a swing off. Or even the 10th and 11th inning, and then your quasi 12th inning is a swing off. I think it does 2 things for you. One, it keeps extra innings alive. You still get 10th inning walk-off homers, 11th inning walk-off homers, or a guy's got to come in and shut a game down after his team is the away team, is able to score a couple of runs. I also think that it gives us an opportunity to not dig so deep into a bullpen that we're having to throw guys 3-4 days in a row on a long stretch and then turn around and probably play a day game the next day, or turn around and have 5 games in 6 days. So you're saving yourself and your teams and your arms by finding a way to include something that does cut the game off and is pretty interesting, but you're not taking away the traditional extra innings that most of these games will probably end in. Because even with, like, if you think about it, back before we had the Ghost Runner, how many games actually went to 12 plus innings? Right? Like, very few.
Sure. So I have the solution, as per the usual, Flax. I know you're so surprised.
You're a very solution-oriented person. I'm more of a dreamer. I like to think of myself more of a dreamer.
And we're we're going to not only take one out of the pockets of the NHL or a lot of the different major soccer leagues across the world who have a overtime period and then they have a shootout, but let's bring in the college football overtime rules here.
I thought about that.
Where I'm bringing this is what I would consider the progression of the rules. So in college football, we go to the 20-yard line, and the first time around, you can score a touchdown. You can kick an extra point, or you can go for a 2-point conversion. It's your choice. Second overtime, we start forcing you to go for 2, right? It's the progression of forcing people to do more in order to win, but also add risk to the situation. So in Major League Baseball, why don't we say in the 10th inning, it's a normal inning. The 11th inning, we put a ghost runner out there in order to make it quote-unquote easier to score. And then in the 12th inning, we can do one more ghost runner inning, or we can go right to a swing-off. Or, again, then the swing-off can be the 13th inning. Regular, ghost runner, swing-off. At the end of the day, I think there's some level of progression that we can utilize in order to make this a worthwhile situation. And no fan is going to sit there and say in the 13th inning or the 12th inning, whichever one you want it to be, they're not interested in watching 6 total guys walk up there and hit the ball as far as humanly possible to win a game. So I think we need some level of progression, right? None of us love the ghost runner, but I think there's an opportunity here to utilize a normal inning, a ghost runner inning, and a home run swing off to win.
I think coming into today, really coming off of the All-Star game and then getting all the way to today, I went through the full gambit of feelings around this. Like, I started out basically saying, like, this is fun, that was cool, that's not how we finish a baseball game, this will never be in the regular season. To then being like, why do we do extra innings? That's stupid, like, I'd rather have this. And then I was going through the process of, like, how do you build that as a team? Like, how do you build, like, guys into that, mindset, or how do you build a team around the idea that, like, this guy might be your extra innings guy, where he literally just comes out and goes 3 for 3 every single time? Who's your BP thrower? Like, I went through all of these thoughts and then basically just got to a point where I was like, yeah, if they do it, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure we'll find a way for it to feel normal. But that, I think, is probably the first good, true solution that I've heard of how we can kind of incorporate everything into it that has a natural flow of getting from game on to, like, let's finish this thing and get on to the next game. Because when you get into, game 110 in the middle of July and August, I don't know what month it would be in, but you get into game 110 of the year and it's a day game and your 1 o'clock start has now bridged into almost 5 o'clock. You're like, what are we doing here? Like, let's keep this thing moving. It would be nice to have a solution. And I think that's reality in the future. So, Rob Manfred, you heard our idea here first. I look forward to you utilizing it in the league at some point in the near future.
Progression, baby. I think it's pretty simple for us. It's one of the reasons why people don't love the ghost runner. We could have just left the 10th inning alone and then had the ghost runner after, and everybody would have been much more understanding. And I don't think people realize that. So
this is going to be a dumb question. How did that start? Was that? I feel like that was like a COVID thing, and then it just, like, stayed. Am I crazy?
I believe it did happen during the COVID time period, if I remember correctly. I also would tell you it started with me and you as 11-year-old travel kids and parents not wanting to stay longer than they had to, including paying umpires too much.
Well, it started playing sandlot games and backyard wiffle ball games and not having enough guys to actually stand on base.
Fair. All right, we could go on about this forever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our ideas. The swing off was really fun. I think it is definitely Major League Baseball's version of a penalty shootout. It's just how do we use it correctly if we would like to. Bold predictions for the second half, Flax. There's a lot that could happen. We've got 2 for the NL and we've got 2 for the AL that we'd like to share. I think the first one starts off spicy. I think I did everybody justice here with something a little bit more spicy than usual. And I'm going to go out on a limb right now. I'm looking you dead in the eye when I say this.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me hear it. What do you got?
3 NL Central teams will make the playoffs in 2025.
So you're telling me you think somebody is missing the boat from the NL East and the NL West?
Oh, yeah.
and one of those divisions is only going to have one team, their division winner. Okay?
Listen, if we're going
That's
to
math.
get off to a fire start, we may as well give a bold prediction, right? So the NL Central, for those who don't know, have 4 teams that are absolutely vying for playoff contention.
Yeah,
Two of them look like...
I was going to ask which 4 teams, but I feel like we know who the odd man out is.
We might. 2 of those teams look to be in great positions already to make the playoffs in the Cubs and the Brewers. So the 2 we're going to talk about today are the Cincinnati Reds and the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll start with the Reds here. The Reds sitting only 1.5 games back. They started off the second half as good as you can, aka 2-0. And the players themselves are already vying for the front office to go get some
I saw
actual talent at the deadline to supplement the team, and don't be afraid to sell some of the premium talent in the farm, because the front office has already come out and stated that they don't want to part with premium talent at this deadline. Emilio Pagan literally interviewed and said, interview, stated, he was like, hey, we came out and won the first 2 games. We're planning on winning tomorrow because we're trying to force the hand of our front office to go get us what we need to make a run at the playoffs. I love that.
Playing the Mets right now, too.
100%. I love it. So what are we looking at here with the Reds? Well, one, I want to remind everybody that Hunter Green's hurt right now. A guy who came out very quickly this year and looked like a Cy Young contender. He is expected to start a rehab assignment soon. This is a Reds pitching staff that is top 15 across the board statistically. Bringing back Hunter Green for the second half, I think that's really going to help push them over a line because we know what he can do. They've got a really good young offense, but who's unexpectedly had a resurgence? Flax, you know this guy pretty well in Austin Hayes. Mm-hmm. He's been picking up some of the slack for some of the younger guys who have just been off to a slow start.
He just needs to be healthy. That's all it is. When he's healthy, he is one of the best offensive outfielders in the game. He uses power to both sides. He takes really good at bats. He also just plays a really gritty game of baseball, which is partially why he gets hurt a lot. But it's very, very much up Tito's alley, and I think is a really good veteran presence in that clubhouse. I'm hoping that it rubs off on guys like Matt McClain, Spencer Steer a little bit. I think those guys have maybe not been what this team expected of them. Matt McClain's starting to hit a little bit better going into the break, and really since the start of July, he's been a far better hitter than he was in the months preceding. I think that would be massive for this team if they could start seeing him go the right way.
Yeah, dude, anybody who doesn't use batting gloves is gritty. Just throwing that out there. I mean, very clear, throwing it out there. That makes you gritty automatically.
Yeah, Austin 100%. Hayes, one of those guys.
Yeah, there it is. Matt McClain, an extremely solid talent. He's a guy who's been a little bit hurt. A lot of pop upside with him. Swing and miss rate has been really, really tough this year. However, I expect it to continue to turn around. Spencer Steer has also shown that he is a very solid big league hitter. I think he's been battling with injuries this year, and I expect him to have a better second half. The other piece for me with the Reds is they are boasting a very solid plus 38 run differential this year. They are in a competitive division, right? But we've had the schedule changes. Rather than having to play all these teams 18 to 19 times, they're playing all these teams 13 times. I think this gives them a little bit more leeway in some quote-unquote less gritty interdivision games. But the X factor is who the X factor has always been in 2025 for the Cincinnati Reds. And that's Elly De La Cruz needing a MVP-type second half to really help propel this offense forward. I think we can both agree if this bold prediction is going to happen and one of these teams is going to make it, the Reds are the most likely, and De La Cruz leading this team offensively is going to have to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, right? It starts with his ability to just get on base. I think that's been the biggest struggle, and it was the struggle coming into this season, was can Elly drop his strikeout rate enough that he's going to at least put the ball in play and potentially get on base half of those times, a quarter of those times. He's one of those guys that when he's getting on base, he's making things happen. He's getting better pitches for guys behind him to hit. I think Elly's been pretty solid up to this point this year, right? Hitting 281. He's got another hit and an RBI today against the Mets. He's not been playing poorly, but it's got to go one more level up to be the guy that we expect him to be and to propel this team to the playoffs. If you look across their roster, there's nobody within their 1 through 9 that is the guy you count on every time he gets in the box. And if you look at all these teams that are setting themselves up to be playoff teams, there's 1 to 2 of those guys every single night that the lineup revolves around. And if the lineup is able to get guys on base when it comes back around to those hitters, the other team has no choice but to throw them pitches to hit, and that's generally where they lose baseball games. So I think when you look at this team as a whole, I agree. Ellie is the X factor. But I still go back to Matt McClain and Spencer Steer hitting better. If Matt McClain is the true athletic bat that he is for the rest of the year, which he has been for the last week and a half, I think this team takes massive leaps forward. I think the pitching can take a little bit off of its shoulders before Hunter Green gets back, and you can win some more games by a little bit of a bigger margin.
Yeah, and moving to the rest of the keys here, right? I think the first one is pretty simple: is this team is going to have to prove to the front office very, very quickly that they need to do something at the deadline, right? We saw Jaime Candelario get DFA'd recently. He's the guy who they were really looking at third base to make sure that was a stable position. Santiago Espinal, very solid player, but he's not going to give the offensive upside needed. So looking at a reunion with an Eugenio Suarez, who is having a phenomenal season right now, bringing him back to one of the smaller ballparks in all of baseball to continue to hit absolute tanks at would be big for them. Ryan McMahon filling that third base hole, another guy who I think would really benefit from Great American Ballpark, plays solid defense. And then, of course, the bullpen can never be strong enough in this day and age of baseball, right? Going out and looking for a guy who you could get at a quote-unquote affordable price in a David Bednar, who has proven he can be a high-leverage arm and has kind of regained form here in 2025. I think those are all options, but at the end of the day, I do believe the Reds probably need to go out and spend some capital or prospect capital in order to make this run a reality to the playoffs.
You got to find some power. And unfortunately, another guy we didn't talk about, Christian Encarnacion Strand.
Yeah.
Supposed to be a strong right-handed bat for them this year. Just got optioned a week ago down to AAA because he was hitting .208 with 6 home runs.
And coming back from injury, to his credit, right? And it takes time, but you need it.
You need him to come back from injury and hit half as well as he can hit, not a quarter of as well as he can hit. Right?
100%.
Moving, showing you that he is trending in the direction to bring and supply a little bit more power to this team, which he's just not doing right now.
Agreed. So we'll see. There's another team that's not that far back in the NL Central, and most people have probably forgotten about them, which is insane at this point because, at least throughout the childhood that Flax and I had, they were a staple of the playoffs every single year, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals, who are only sitting 2.5 games back of a wild card spot. They've got some potential reinforcements on the way. We talked about one of them a little bit earlier in J.J. Weatherholt. Mitch McGreevy looks like he's going to be a great arm for them. Potentially could slot in to help where they've been fumbling a little bit with Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis not throwing as well as you'd like to see either of them throw.
Yeah.
I think this is such a sneaky group, man. No other way to put it.
It's crazy to me. I mean, I said this to Jackson because he was getting so frustrated with Michaelis and Fetty just continuing to get starts. It is crazy to me that this team is where they're at with the two of those guys consistently getting starts. They just have, flat out stating facts, they have not been good. No. And they haven't been as bad, maybe, as we're making it out to be, but they certainly haven't been good enough to continue propelling this team forward. And I think
holding 2 rotation spots on a team that is 2.5 games out of a playoff spot.
Right. When you look at what this team's putting together from an offensive standpoint, from the guys that are on their roster and the seasons they're putting together, I mean, Brendan Donovan, just shy of 300 with 8 bombs on the year. You've got a couple of guys in double-digit home runs. You're not pounding the ball around the yard, but you're doing enough and hitting well enough that you're finding ways to win ball games, and you're winning close ball games, right? You have one of the best bullpens in baseball. You've got a great closer. But if every 5 days you're running two guys out there that make you throw your hands up to the sky and say, well, we'll see what we get today, you can't keep propelling forward. And this is where in the trade deadline, teams will either claw their way into the playoffs or they'll get shut out and they'll go from being, 5 games over 500 to finishing the season 10 games under, because you just totally lose the ability to compete against these teams that are reinforcing themselves. Teams in your division that you're going to play a lot of games against, like the Brewers, like the Cubs.
Yeah, and we're seeing this offense really start to come together as well. Alec Burleson, Wilson Contreras, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman starting to really show what people thought he could be. And I love to see the fact that he's starting to figure out at the big league level. Obviously still a lot of swing and miss there, but hey, if the pop's there, it's going to play. And Mason Wynn, of course, was excellent last year, continues to be very, very solid this year, and looks to be heating up over his last X amount of games. I think the big key for me here offensively is really going to be Lars Nootbaar being that upper echelon bat for them that we know he can be. Nolan Arenado has really struggled of recent. Him coming back and at least being his, what I would say, average self is going to be huge for them. But they're another team where the front office probably is going to dictate a lot of how this goes from a standpoint of, is Ryan Helsley still a St. Louis Cardinal at the deadline, right? Now, the Cardinals might deal Helsley not because they want to, but because there's going to be some offers that probably come to the table for him this year that they might not be able to say no to. That's hard for Cardinals fans to hear. But I also look at this organization is they probably have 3 or 4 arms that I don't even know the names of that could come up and be extremely good out of the bullpen. They've done it for years. It's ridiculous that they do it all the time. But I'm very interested to see what they do. I think this is a sneaky pick.
I think it's hard because I view the Reds and the Cardinals in a very similar standpoint, but they behave very differently as organizations. I think they're both probably a whole nother year out of being the team that contends in the playoffs, not just getting there. I think there's a difference between getting to the playoffs and contending in the playoffs, and teams that don't know if they're ready to contend in the playoffs tend to not make a lot of moves at the deadline to be a contender in the playoffs. They ride with what they've got, make a couple of moves here and there to just try and reinforce some gaps, and then they do what they can to get to the playoffs. Now, a guy that probably is on his last stand is Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker is not putting together the season they would have wanted. Injuries, again, are creeping up on him. But you have to think a guy who's 6'6", 250 and swings the bat the way he does has still got it somewhere in him. So maybe there is a chance that they move a guy like him to bring in some bullpen reinforcement help. Or maybe they do move a guy like him to grab an upside arm for a year and a half of control. Not a top line starter, but a guy who can fill into the 3-4 role with Eric Fetty. But the real likelihood of the situation is this is an organization that doesn't need to for their long term. When you have guys like Tink Hence and Quinn Matthews waiting in the wings to be the next rotation arms for this organization.
Cooper Hjerb,
like, you don't necessarily need to make those moves this year. You need to do what you can to get to the playoffs, to continue to keep good culture brewing within an organization that tends to retool and not rebuild. And I think they finally have some core bats and some core position players that they can start building that around. The other struggle Cardinals fans deal with right now is money. They got dealt a really bad hand in a TV deal that has cut them at the knees financially. And I think as you start to see that clean itself up in the next couple of years, hopefully that aligns with some of these younger players getting some contracts that they deserve and continuing to keep that core around and continue to keep this team within that retool shaping with it rather than a rebuilding. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting pick. Again, this is why we say you could potentially see 3 teams that come out of the NL Central, because the likelihood is you could see the Brewers and the Cubs almost definitively. Obviously, this is baseball and things could fall off a map, but almost definitively you see those 2 teams. One of these 2 between the Reds and the Cardinals could absolutely sneak their way in there. I love you, Mets fans, but we know what the Mets can do come September, right? We know what the Padres can do come September. They can either get really, really hot or they can get really, really cold. The likelihood that you may only see one team out of one of those two divisions is not going to be shocking.
And let's be clear. It's even less about the teams. Welcome to baseball. We've seen it happen over and over again to teams who come in and they look like a World Series favorite right up until September. And then all of a sudden the floor just falls out from under them. It's something that happens, unfortunately, every year to a lot of different teams. So thinking somebody else in the NL Central can sneak in, we love it. I think it's fun. We'll see what happens. Moving on to our next, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to round it out, just so everybody's aware, the Reds are a game and a half out of a wild card spot. The Cardinals are 2.5 out of a wild card spot. Tons of baseball left to play. But just knowing they are that close. It takes a week of good baseball and a week of bad baseball from another team to shift your way in there.
100%. They're tight. Let's move on to our second bold prediction here in the NL. Flax, I'm going to let you take this one away here.
Yeah, I think Paul Skeens is not going to win the NL Cy Young. And I think that a lot of people think like Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens have Cy Youngs locked up. Zach Wheeler has been borderline better than Paul Skeens already this year. There's some production stats where maybe he's got him, but it's all very marginal up to this point. I think the likelihood is, and I know we don't talk about this with pitchers, but there is a likelihood that Zach Wheeler is looking at a nice round number of 15 or 20 wins, and Paul Skeens is not. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people who vote who still think that that's important. So when I talk about voting, I'm not necessarily just talking about what their numbers should dictate. I'm talking about what their numbers do dictate. Another piece of that is Zach Wheeler plays for a better team. Being a more important piece on a better and more successful team does have an impact in how you get voted for. Every one of Zach Wheeler's starts means more to the Phillies than every one of Paul Skeens' start means to the Pirates. Just is what it is. That is important in how well you do as a pitcher, and if it is marginal between the two of them, that is an impactful piece of the conversation. But when you break it down to brass tacks, Zach Wheeler has a far lower hard hit rate, a higher K percentage. I think both of those translate longer term over the course of a season to better production numbers on Zach Wheeler's side longer term. And then xERA, ERA, FIP, expected FIP, all those numbers, like I said, very, very marginal distances between where both of them sit around the 1 and 2 spot within the NL. Zach Wheeler's .3 WAR off of Paul Skeens with one less start than Skeens has for the Pirates right now. I just think when it's all said and done, as you look at how tight this race is, some of those intangibles that I mentioned before are going to come into play. And I think Zach Wheeler takes it home.
Yeah, I think this is totally possible, for sure. Listen, Paul Skeens is going to be one of the darling pitchers of the MLB for the next 15 years, I hope, and rightfully so. Let's be clear. I mean, this is nothing against Paul Skeens and what he does on a daily basis. I do look at this as Wheeler's overall analytical metrics do show that he could very well, if the ball falls the right way, have a better, from a production perspective, which generally is what wins you awards, have a better second half than Skeens. It's going to be really interesting. Now, at the same time, as people joke about in golf, Paul Skeens could look us all dead in the eye and say, I'm going low. And Paul Skeens just crushes everybody. Who knows? But right now, when you look at it, to me, Zach Wheeler is one of the few pitchers in all of baseball who has a higher overall pitcher run value than Paul Skeens at his 29 to 26. Again, you brought up a lot of his analytics and batted ball against metrics. It does seem as if he could have easily had a very similar ERA or overall numbers to Wheeler in the first half. Moving into the second half, I think we could definitely see a level of improvement. To me, it goes back to what you said about how people vote for these awards, right? It stinks that we're sitting here saying that Paul Skeens, who is so fun to watch and one of the greatest pitchers right now, to bless a mound, still pitching, unfortunately, with the Pirates in scenarios that aren't as meaningful. And that does matter once the voters take pen to paper at the end of the day. I think this is very possible. I also am on the same page. I think, too, it won't surprise me when it comes down to these two specifically. Zach Wheeler, little extra chip on his shoulder, already announced that he's not going to be pitching past 2026. So why not? He's a guy who's going out there every day and letting loose what's in his tank because he can. So it'll be really interesting to see how this falls out. Paul Skeens not winning the NL Cy Young is one of our bold predictions for the second half. Flax, start us off on the AL. I know you love this one. I know you've been so excited to talk about this guy so much recently, and I love this one.
Yeah, Mike Trout currently 50th among AL qualified hitters with a 1.3 WAR. I'm making the prediction that Mike Trout finishes 2025 inside the top 15 in FWAR in the American League for the first time since 2019, only full seasons included. Mike Trout currently on pace for around a 4.3 FWAR. That would have been good for 12th last year among the American League. He has currently 1.2 of his 1.3 total WAR amassed since June 1st. Mike Trout's baseball savant page, if you want to go take a look at it and then compare it to 2019, other than swinging and missing just a hair more, it's more than a hair more, by the way. That was a joke. It looks almost identical to his 2019 MVP season. I just think Mike Trout is unfortunately being forgotten about. He's got his average now back up to 241, right? Like, Mike Trout is starting to hit the baseball a little more consistently while maintaining the power. The guy is an absolute menace at the dish, and I don't understand why the league is forgetting about him. I get it, but I don't get it.
I find it so entertaining that we're having this discussion. One of the most highly rated players in the history of baseball, the guy who made everybody stare at WAR and go, ooh, ah, like it was a fireworks show. And here we are in 2025 talking about how people are forgetting about him. And it's been really unfortunate, right? Listen, Mike Trout's injury history is probably one of the saddest things that I've had to watch throughout my lifetime as a baseball fan. However, getting to see him healthy and look good again has been awesome. Listen, he's 3 for 9 to start the second half with 2 doubles, right? Trout right now is sitting at, for all of you analytic heads, let me start there because all of you will love this, right? Trout's at the 100th percentile right now in launch angle sweet spot percentage, right? With an expected batting average that's 38 points higher.
He hits the ball in the air.
He does what many of you are asking everybody to do, right? So this will be a fun test. If this continues, his production metrics should improve throughout the rest of the year. And Flax is going to note this because not only is he excited about Trout, but seeing that he's 100th percentile in launch angle sweet spot and putting the ball in the air like this, if his production metrics aren't great by the end of the year, expect a long discussion from Flax about how much this doesn't matter. Either way, slashing 241, 364, 474, I got to be honest, that's great for most people in the league, but we all know that's below par for what Mike Trout can do. When I look at everything within his batted ball metrics, the way he's swinging the bat, his overall level of excitement to be on the field every day with his teammates, ready to rock and be that middle of the order bat, I am so excited to see Mike Trout on the field in the second half, and I'm all in Mike Trout top 15 in FWAR by the end of 2025 for this season. Maybe top 10. Let's just throw it out there. Why the heck not?
I mean, it would be a lot of work to get into the top 10. Just as far as WAR goes, Mike Trout has amassed just shy of what Adrian Beltre achieved. Mike Trout currently in his career is sitting at on Baseball Reference a career WAR of 87 in 15 seasons. That's including a short
5 of those
2020.
Seasons. It's like 5 of those seasons taken away from him too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and the last 4 since 2019 or since 2020, where he just didn't get to play full seasons. I don't know if anybody remembers the start that he had last year before he got hurt. It was like, I mean, he had amassed 1.1 WAR in 29 games. He was already well on to his way of having another 6 to 7 WAR season, just very quickly. He's still such a good hitter. I just don't want people to forget about it or to think that he's not already going to end up being a Hall of Famer. You win 3 MVPs and amass as high of a WAR as he has. Now, fun fact, for people who don't know, how many more hits do you think he has than one Nick Castellanos in his career? Yeah. I'm only asking because the number is far smaller than you would think.
I have no idea.
Mike Trout has 3 more hits than Nick Castellanos has in his career.
Really?
Yeah, Nick Castellanos has been in the league for 13 years across 4 different teams. Nick Castellanos has 1,706 hits. There's a very real chance, and this is totally off topic, there's a very real chance that Nick Castellanos gets to 2,000 hits and still maintains under a 20 WAR doing so.
Wow. Gosh, we're going to talk about WAR a little bit later in our last segment, so this is a really fun additional lead-in. So let's not go too far into
WAR. all this to say, it's a fun, call out for where we think the season's going to end and something fun with Mike Trout. But the reality of the situation is there's a lot of times I think that WAR can be an overblown stat. And then there's other times where it makes a lot of sense, right? He has been a very impactful player on his team. Nick Castellanos has a lot more playoff stats.
100%. That's the sad moment for Mike Trout. We'll leave it on that. Top 15 in F-WAR by the end of 2025. How about this one, Flax? It's one I've been hoping for. The Seattle Mariners will finally catch and overtake
Flip the script.
The Houston Astros and win an AL West crown.
Sure. You think they're going to flip the script on them?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, there's been the last couple of years where we've been talking about the fact that they were going to hold on to the lead at the second half, and it didn't happen. I'm excited to see
this year, by the way. They had it. I said they lost it very quickly this year. They had it for about a month and a half, and then
hold on. You said it earlier. It only takes 1 week of good and bad baseball to flip things around.
We were talking about teams that were a game and a half separated. It's a slightly different conversation when we're talking about teams that are separated by a good bit more games. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's impossible. It's a 3-game difference.
1 week of good baseball, Flax.
Yeah.
So either way, hold on, let me get into this. First off,
what do you got?
The Mariners, we both know, boast one of the best rotations in all of baseball, no questions asked. Bryce Miller, he's on his way back, hopefully, starting a rehab assignment any day now. And right now, for those of you who don't know, statistically, ERA, whip, strikeouts, batting average against the Houston Astros starting rotation has actually been better than the Seattle Mariners rotation. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Big Five is not going to go down that way in the second half. And I really do expect, with Kirby coming back and starting to look healthier every single day, that this rotation is going to regress back to the mean, which is better than what the entirety of the rotation has thrown to this year. So I expect them the Mariners rotation down the stretch to continue to play better and better baseball. I think that's going to be a huge boost for them. I also think that the Mariners have one of the best minor leagues and the deepest farm systems in all of baseball. They took Luke Stevens, a catcher, in the first round last week.
He was touted as really 1A, 1B with Caden Bodine.
100%. And everybody was like, oh, but they have Cal Raleigh. Guys, that's not the point here, right? What you don't realize is that actually freed up their ability to move Harry Ford, if they'd like to, this deadline, right? We're talking about a guy who plays behind the dish and is a power right-handed bat. This is a high upside prospect that they could now move for a much-needed bat or a much-needed bullpen arm down the stretch, right? I think that helps. At the end of the day, though, the offense starting to come alive outside of just Cal Raleigh. Jorge Polanco, we're going to expect him to start to go back to being what he was the first month of the season. If that happens, all bets are off for the Astros. But Randy Arozarena, hottest hitter in all of baseball right now. Slugging 10 home runs in his last 14 games. J.P. Crawford boasting his second best season probably ever offensively, if I had to take a look again, but he's got a 129 OPS plus, which would be second in his career. Cal Raleigh has been literally the only MVP candidate in the AL against Aaron Judge when it comes to the production numbers that are being put up.
Yep.
I think there's a shot here, Flax. I really think the Mariners could flip this script.
There's a couple pieces they probably still need to add. They're out there. Depends what they're willing to give. They've got enough pitchers, I think, within their system that people would be willing to trade a bat for. I think around the league, it's probably notable. I think it's very similar with the Guardians that if the Mariners are willing to offer somebody up for a bat and it is a young pitcher, there's a reason they had him in the system in the first place. There's probably something worthwhile to do with that guy. That being said, you know, you look at guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Marcell Ozuna, you look at, again, a Eugenio Suarez as guys that could fill the gap for another power bat within this organization. The biggest thing to me, and we talked about this in the offseason, they didn't give themselves enough opportunities for those big bats to do something worthwhile. A lot of solo home runs. I think this year the fact that a guy like a J.P. Crawford has been on base exponentially more has been really huge for the offense. Ben Williamson, also a guy who's extremely fast, plays good defense. When he does get on base, he makes things happen. They have a couple of guys like that. And more than anything, J-Rod's got to get going, right?
Second half J-Rod.
Second half J-Rod often does, but he's got to get going. It's got to be a little bit more than what it is. I don't need him to be superstar J-Rod, but it's got to be a little better than what it is right now.
100%. J-Rod continues, as he was last year, to be this X-Factor bat for him, right?
Yeah.
We have, within the Mariners organization right now, when you look at what's going on, the offense does look like it's starting to slowly click, which has been the question for a while. That's a really, really difficult ballpark to hit in. And when you look at batted ball metrics, it is the toughest ballpark to hit in all of baseball. So really love seeing that the Mariners are starting to stroke the baseball. They're going to need J-Rod, and they're going to need some reinforcements at the deadline here to really bolster that lineup and make a push, because I do believe that the rotation is going to be elite down the stretch, because when the moment is big, the guys on that staff tend to step up. So we'll see. Seattle Mariners overtaking the Houston Astros and winning the AL West crown. That is our last bold prediction for the second half. We are going to run into our last segment here. It's one that has a lot of numbers that I think are fun, but I have a feeling I can drop these numbers in a nice way for you guys. But I don't know if any of you guys noticed, but Kyle Schwarber actually looks like he might be having a Hall of Fame career, and I think we all might be missing it.
I'm at this point with Schwarber where I wonder why teams put the ball anywhere over the plate to him. Like every time he hits a home run, I'm just like, why are you continuing to throw him the baseball over the plate? Because he's gotten better. He's gotten better about not swinging at everything, but the guy still strikes out a good amount where you just shouldn't be throwing him pitches to hit. You just shouldn't be.
But Flax, you can't even say that, because he's a true three-outcome guy. When you don't throw balls over the plate, he's just going to walk.
To an extent, but I think guys are... Yeah.
You
watch him enough.
He's liable to chase.
You watch him enough, you know he's liable to chase as long as the pitches are competitive. I'm not saying throw Javi Baez sliders away from 2 and 3 years ago, but like throwing things that are competitive that are not over the plate. Like watch every home run he hits. He does not miss mistakes ever.
100%. So, but we'll talk more about him as a player. Let's talk about him in this Hall of Fame perspective. So right now, Kyle Schwarber is pacing to be a 500 to 600 home run guy. Yeah, I said that out loud. 600 home run guy potentially, right? He's easily on pace to be a 500 home run guy if he continues at the bare minimum to do what he's been doing for the next 5 years, which I think is very possible. Kyle Schwarber, 32 this year. Many of you have seen him for so long that you might not have realized he's only 32 if we're really being honest, right? Pacing 500 home runs with a 843 career OPS. Why do I give you those two numbers? 500 home runs tends to be one of our large markers as a power hitter to get into the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame's average OPS is 845, so he's sitting right around that area. Now, WAR is going to come into the discussion here sooner than later, and we'll talk about that. At the current moment, Kyle Schwarber, year in and year out when healthy, is averaging 2.4 WAR, 132 hits, 42 home runs, 96 RBIs, 190 strikeouts, and 96 walks. So I annualized his numbers against that average for the next 5 years to age 37 season, and these would be his totals. He would have a 30.5 WAR, 1,655 hits, 526 home runs, 1,206 RBIs, 2,401 strikeouts, and 1,204 walks. All right, we'll start with WAR here. Everybody knows about the Baines meter. It's not getting over that number. The average Hall of Famer has a WAR of 67. So, no, Schwarber is probably not going to hit the WAR mark. But let's be clear. Schwarber, in this case, if he makes the Hall of Fame, would be only the second quote-unquote primary DH to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The other was Edgar Martinez. Now, some of the fun stats of him going in. And let's start with the strikeouts, because I even saw Flax's face, and I heard the sound that he made when I brought it up.
You know how I feel about strikeouts on both sides.
If he was to continue and bring up that line at age 37, then retire, he would rank third all time of any Hall of Famer in strikeouts. Only third to Reggie Jackson at 2,597 strikeouts and Jim Tomei at 2,548 strikeouts. We are saying that this is Schwarber in his age 37 season. So there's nothing to say that Kyle Schwarber might go into the Hall of Fame as the highest strikeout total guy ever to make the Hall of Fame. That's fun. My personal opinion. Wow. Flax, you seem to have a note on this. You good over there?
No, I'm processing numbers. For anybody who's listening and not watching, you could just see my face just looking off in the distance, processing all the numbers that Ryan's rattling off, and I'm thinking about different hitters and when they reach the 500 mark, and I'm just thinking through different guys that had very different types of careers, were very different types of hitters. Schwarber's got a lot of time left to get there. I feel good about that. At a minimum, I feel very good about that. So let's start there.
I want to give everybody the stat that is going to get Kyle Schwarber into the Hall of Fame, because you need to get to where I'm going here, and this is what it is. Earlier, I called Kyle Schwarber a true 3-outcome hitter. What that means is Kyle Schwarber walks up to the plate, and most of the time, and in Kyle Schwarber's case, 78.5% of the time, Kyle Schwarber either hits a home run, strikes out, or walks. 78.5% of the time, that is the outcome of a Kyle Schwarber at bat. Let's move back to the home run number, because this is where this gets crazy. My annualized numbers at age 37 for Kyle Schwarber put him at 526 home runs to 1,655 hits. That would make Kyle Schwarber have the most all-time gaudy stat of the fact that when Kyle Schwarber gets a hit, 31.7% of the time, the ball goes over the fence. 1 out of basically every 3 Kyle Schwarber hits goes over the fence.
If you find yourself watching baseball every year and you think to yourself, man, it feels like Kyle Schwarber hits a home run every night, this is why. Because if he puts the ball in play 3 times a game and doesn't strike out, one of them will be a home run.
It is, okay, for context, the only person in the Hall of Fame that even comes close to having a home run to hit percentage is Harmon Killebrew, who hit 573 home runs, had 2,086 hits, and he still was only hitting home runs against his hit total at a 27.5% clip.
My God.
Kyle Schwarber is a good, clean 4+ percentage points higher than Harmon Killebrew. Guys, that number is nuts. 1 out of every 3 Kyle Schwarber hits goes over the fence. This guy's going to hit over 500 home runs, and he's not going to have 2,000 hits. This is never been seen before. And if they don't put this dude in the Hall of Fame, if he actually completes this, I'm going to be upset.
Do you think, well, so no, this is the question, right? Like, I think 550's got to be his number. 500 may not be enough. And
I'm with it.
If for those of you out there who know what this is, if he doesn't go in the Hall of Fame, he might be the first unanimous Hall of Pretty Good inductee. And I'm saying this right like 7 years from now when he does officially retire after hitting all these home runs. If he does not go into the Hall of Fame, so to be inducted into the Hall of Pretty Good, for people who don't know, you have to have under a 35 B WAR, no MVPs, must be retired, can't be in Cooperstown. All-Star Game MVPs do not count in this. I got to clarify that now that he's won an All-Star Game MVP, and playoff MVPs don't count in this. Just a league MVP. Kyle Schwarber will be under a 35 B WAR, even if he hits as many home runs as he could hit over the next 5 to 7 seasons. No question in my mind.
So if he goes 7 seasons, he would be annualized at a 34.9 B WAR.
Perfect. So I just want people to understand the difference in you want to start talking about careers that got to similar home run totals. David Ortiz still hit 286 career.
2,400 hits plus.
Right. 541 home runs, also 2,400 hits. I think when you start looking at Schwarber, there's a very real shot here that we have a guy who goes 550 home runs and does not make the Hall of Fame.
And doesn't even have 2,000 hits.
Well, that would be why in my mind.
But he is...
David Ortiz, by the way, only ever reached 55 WAR.
Well, he'll be the second, hopefully, true DH to be in the Hall, right?
That would be nice. I mean, I think when you look, Big Papi was 39 years old when he finally reached his 500th home run. I think the reality of the situation here is that Schwarber could reach it closer to an age 37 if he keeps hitting. Well, what's the pace is that the pace you have him
42. At? So his pace to do it by that season would be 26 to 5. He would need to go.
I see you've got him at 526 at
30,
age 37.
He would need to go 38 to go 500. I think exactly. Be right in there, yeah. 30. It's whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so
42
just some
minus
numbers.
5. 37. There it is.
Just some numbers for people since 2022. 46, 47, 38, 32. 32 is this season. It's July. I mean, we could be on a 50 home run pace this year. I don't know the math because I'm just not good at fast math. But
so I want to add one more minor thing into this.
Oh my God.
Kyle Schwarber, Midwest kid. People are already asking him when he's done with this Phillies contract if he'd be interested in playing for the Reds at Great American Ballpark.
Oh my God.
You want to guarantee the home run numbers? Put him in Great American.
It would be fun to see him. It'd be fun to see him there next year. I mean, he's got it. He's coming up for free agent contract.
He said he's interested too.
If there's a team that needs to throw some money around for a bat, now the struggle is look who he's got to face. The flip side of that, right? It's very much a tough division, it's very much an easy ballpark to hit in. Might be a tough pitching division to have to face.
This is Kyle Schwarber we're talking about here.
I understand that, but at this moment, he's got to face Mizorowski, Skeens, Jared Jones, potentially Bubba Chandler, guys that have firepower. As he more than likely, as he gets older, declines in things like bat speed and limberness to be able to hit guys like that. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a tougher. I don't know. NL East isn't an easy division to hit against.
I was about to say, it's not like he's in a division that's got easy arms to hit against now.
So the last thing here is, can we talk about the fever dream that was Kyle Schwarber on the Washington Nationals? And I will pull up his stats in Nats Park.
Go ahead.
Because it is.
They're amazing.
I loved it. Even as an opponent, his batting abilities. I gotta find it here. Sorry. His stats in his career in Nats Park are absurd.
Gaudy.
They're disgusting.
They're almost as gaudy as his 31.7% home run to hit ratio.
Here we go. We've got it right here for everybody who's still hanging on with my thought process. 68 games played in this stadium. He's batting .268. He has 24 home runs in 68 games. You want to talk about that 1/3 number? There you go. I mean, it is
so
insane the rate that he's been able to do things, and it's going to be a shame when he gets to 550 home runs and they still say, well, no, sorry. Or he'll be the new Baines meter. It'll be the Schwarber meter.
Kind of hope. It'd be sick.
Right? Or the Baines line, whatever you want to call it. But that's our thought process on Kyle Schwarber.
I hope you enjoyed it. Because Schwarber is very enjoyable. We're gonna hope to see Schwarber for years to come. Let's roll here into our final segment. Rather than the best season you've never heard of, we're gonna give you the best second half you've never heard of. Oh yeah. I'll go first. We've talked about this season before, actually, but we didn't break it down to the second half, so we're gonna break down the second half for you. CC Sabathia traded to the Brewers in 2008. He goes 17 starts in the second half. He's 11-2, 130 innings pitched, a 1.65 ERA, a 2.44 FIP, 128 Ks, and 25 walks and a 4.9 WAR. Half a season in the NL, and he finishes 5th in NL Cy Young voting. Wow. That's the second half acquisition, my friend. That's how you do it.
In a contract year.
Yeah, dude.
Right? Like
and then the Yankees paid him every dollar he was worth.
It's crazy. Like, let me put this into perspective for people. It's crazy how much we remember CC Sabathia in a Brewers uniform, considering that was it. That was it. That was his only time in a Brewers uniform, ever. And we, think about CC Sabathia as a Brewer.
100%.
I'm almost positive he hit 3 to 5 home runs in that uniform as well.
Absolutely.
During that 17 start.
Because CC Sabathia
phenomenal.
raked.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be great to add to his second half line. You go ahead and tell yours, and I'll add that to
I want to know what it is.
line.
Because that, by the way, the only time he was an NL pitcher when he got to hit, right? Okay. My guy on the flip side, who, speaking of hitting, is one of those weirdos who throws left-handed and bats right-handed. My guy's Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson in 1998, in a very similar contract year, was with the Astros. 93 innings pitched, a 1.54 ERA, a 2.36 FIP, 128 Ks to 32 walks, and only 16 earned runs. Finished 7th in the NL Cy Young voting. Only spent 12 starts in the NL that year. Only spent 12 starts in the NL. Right?
We're just going to call this the Gaudy Stats podcast.
I mean, what are we talking about here? I want to put this into some perspective for people. So, last year, Paul Skeens won Rookie of the Year in the NL, was 3rd in Cy Young voting. Everyone talked about how, he didn't necessarily pitch a full season. He had 23 starts. As good as his numbers were, in that span, he had a 1.96 ERA and 170 strikeouts. Randy Johnson had 128 in 12 starts. 12 starts. That's 11 less than Paul Skeens had. And he had 50 less strikeouts? Less than 50 less strikeouts?
It's the big unit, baby.
Oh my God. How much fun was that as an Astros fan? The back half of the year. You go get the big unit, and the big unit does what the big unit does. 93 innings for you with a 1.54 ERA. How much fun is that?
I couldn't have even imagined how entertained they would have been, to be honest, because So real quick, we'll end it here. Sabathia in a Brewers uniform that year hit 229, 229, 333 with 1 home run, 2 doubles over his 11 hits.
Wow.
So add that to his second half resume. I bet you there's no pitcher other than Ohtani that's going to do that nowadays.
Well, you want to know what else is weird about Randy Johnson's 98 second half? With Seattle in the first half, in 23 starts, he had a 4.33 ERA.
He was hittable?
Like, he wasn't that good. He had 213 strikeouts, so that's pretty cool. But, like, he wasn't that great. And the Astros were like, nah, he'll be that good for us. And he was. He came in and was dominant.
I love it.
That's incredible.
I love it. Well, as always, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We appreciate you. The irony of our whole situation is we're on the clock because our men's league game, it's about to be time for both Flax and I to leave for that. But thanks for hanging out with us here a little longer than we normally are. We hope you enjoyed all the conversations. Tell us what we got right, what we did wrong, as there will be no Jackson Scudder Stat Guy this week. The travel has been craziness for both of our work
Hopefully
schedules.
next week he'll be back.
It'll be coming soon. He's ready. It's just we're not in a position to do it.
He's more than ready.
So either way, again, as always, like, follow, subscribe. Hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Hope you guys are enjoying our content on all the socials. Past that, have a great week.